Humanity stumbles upon the one facility. No one dares enter, an ancient alien maze erected by the progenitor slain. Keith master race that has baffled the greatest minds in the galaxy for centuries. As some species are working on solving the puzzle in the standard way, engineer Marcus Chen has a somewhat different suggestion. Let's blow it up instead of going through all the normal rigmarole. His team members set off explosives in order to make their way to the center, which in turn sets off the maze's defense system, revealing that the maze is really a test to see which species are brazen enough to break the rules. The Cathara had stored advanced technologies that could transform an entire civilization, but only if the beings lucky enough to find the artifacts were foolish enough to pay no heed to ancient mysteries and instead kick down doors rather than decipher puzzles. Humanity instead passes its version of the test and gets these transformative technologies as a reward. But they decide it's best to phase in the most dangerous knowledge slowly. Marcus Chen was sitting there, watching the same video repeating over and over on the holographic screen for 3 hours. 17 square kilometers of deserted planetoid surface. Its walls, 300 meters high against the rust-tinted sky, sunk in the depths of the crystal maze. Every corridor curved and looped at impossible angles, breaking Euclidean reality, with passageways that doubled back on themselves, and chambers that existed at a level of reality that the human brain was not supposed to be able to comprehend. Beautiful, whispered Dr. Sarah Hendricks, the xenarchaeologist of the expedition, her finger following the contours of the maze. The Cathara would have spent centuries building this. They've got this mathematical precision, how each is angle geared up to their base 14 counting system. Marcus grunted, the engineer in him already running sums on load-bearing structures and stress points. Gorgeous waste of time, you mean? We have been here 6 weeks. Sarah, 6 weeks of our best puzzle solvers, banging their heads up against walls that aren't coming down. The observation deck at the research station hummed with frustrated energy. 23 of that galaxy's most brilliant minds sat in council to solve the largest puzzle in known space, as the Galactic Archaeological Society called it. 7 types of species had sent their representatives to try their luck in the midst of the maze. The bug-eyed Threx had dispatched their top pattern recognition experts. The gaseous Windari had attempted to seep through pinholes. The Nexus used their top computational algorithms. All had failed. The Cathara were a peaceful people, Sarah went on, her voice laden with the respect of someone who had studied vanished cultures for decades. They vanished 3 million years ago, but their technology indicates they were experts in manipulating dimensions. This is no ordinary maze. It's a puzzle, their last gift to the universe. A test of worthiness. Test of worthiness. Marcus laughed bitterly. For what? The ability to go drive ourselves crazy, getting lost in hallways with no end. By the time Captain Alina Vasquez marched into the room, the academic feeling of the room had been sliced and diced with her military posture. Status report, Dr. Hendricks. The oversight committee is up my ass. They want results, not philosophy. Sarah's shoulders sagged. We have mapped 87% of the outer passages, but we cannot get into the central chamber. All paths arrive at dead ends or recycle back to the entrance. This was made to be insoluble in the standard way by the Cathara. Traditional methods, Marcus said, tapping a tablet to bring up the building's structural schematics. That's the problem right there. They're all treating this like it's sacred, as if it's something to be archived and analyzed, not to be solved. It's sacred, Sarah snapped. This is the last of an entire civilization. We can't just what? Marcus interrupted. Can't just solve it. Since, after all, that's why we're here, isn't it? To work out what's in the center. The argument that ensued had been brewing for weeks. Sarah was the archaeological side. The maze was a precious thing to be examined with care. Marcus captained an engineering team in which it was results, not reverence, that was valued. Captain Vasquez was caught between scientific curiosity and military expediency. It took the Threx 2 weeks to map quantum resonance patterns, Sarah said, and there was that edge of wariness again. The Windari attempted molecular phase shift. The Nexus conducted 16,666,000 computational scenarios. These are advanced civilizations, Marcus. If they can't figure it out, what the hell do you think it's because they're thinking like aliens? Marcus cut in. They're entering the maze like the Cathara suspected they would, playing by the rules, honoring the design, attempting to be worthy of whatever's inside. He got up and walked across to the large observation windows which gave on to the maze. The old structure of the place caught the binary sunset, and the crystalline walls threw the light into colors that were impossible to look at, but which still hurt the eyes. But we're humans, Marcus continued. We don't play by the rules. We don't respect ancient mysteries. We find a locked door, we kick it down. We find ourselves facing an unsolvable riddle. We rewrite the rules of the game. You're talking about bringing it down, Sarah said softly. 3 million years of story gone because you can't be asked to sort it out. I mean solving it, period, Marcus responded. Everybody else has been trying to stumble out of the maze. But what if that is an entirely wrong way to think about things? What if the true exam of life is acknowledging that some puzzles are not meant to be solved, they are meant to be surpassed? The argument continued for another hour before Captain Vasquez demanded a vote. The scientists were nearly equally divided. The xenoarchaeologists favored Sarah's hands-off plan, and the engineers and techs sided with Marcus's proactive strategy. In the end, military protocol won out. We have orders to see what's in the middle of that maze, Vasquez declared. It was studied for 6 weeks, and it produces nothing. We are empowered to use any means necessary. Sarah ran out, but Marcus was already on the job. The following morning, explosives were placed at 17 intelligent positions around the outside of the maze. All night, Marcus had been directing structure analyses, finding the load-bearing members which kept the whole complex standing. His plan was surgical. Get straight to center while saving as much of the building as they could. You're going to get yourself killed, Sarah added, monitoring the activity from the viewing platform. Cathara didn't put this up as a wall. They built it as a journey. Being there is more important than getting there. Everyone has tried the path but us, came Marcus' voice over the CUM system. This is when we humans show them that we solve the impossible. The research station felt the first blast. A portion of the maze's outer wall disintegrated away, exposing the first interior passages no living soul had witnessed since millennia. The crystal structure rang, a bell, with harmonics reverberated into the pretalloid surface. Structural integrity holding, said Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, Marcus's demolition expert, ready for Phase 2. The second explosion tore an even larger corridor through the defensive geometry of the maze that spanned 3 layers. Ancient dust filled the chamber in a slow explosion, bearing the scent of ozone, and something else too, something organic that made the skin of the human team members crawl. Atmospheric readings are nominal, declared Dr. Patricia Wang, the expedition's physician. No toxins, no radiation. Whatever is in there, it's been waiting a long time. But it was the third blast where it all went wrong. The maze began to fight back. Walls that had not moved in 3,000,000 years began to slide with such loud and horrendous grinding that it sounded as though tectonic plates were colliding. The passages we'd mapped and surveyed were rearranging themselves, new configurations that made no sense. "It's learning," Sarah whispered, fascination playing out across her face as she observed the holographic data on the screen changing. In real time, the maze is reacting to our presence. It's trying to repair itself. "Now we whack it again," Gorman growled through the deck cord. "Jake Ra, let's go for twice the submission on next series. We're going to break right through this thing before it even knows what it is." Marcus, why Sarah, was interrupted by the fourth explosion. This time, the maze reacted immediately and horribly. The walls began to sing, and the crystal harmonics played at pitches that could break mortal bones. The geometric symbols etched into the surface began to emit a pulsating light, one that marked out energy that had lain dormant for thousands of years, which is when the maze started to grow. New hallways exploded from the earth, winding into impossibly interlocked shapes. Galleries folded backward into Klein bottle geometries that were painful to behold. The maze wasn't just healing itself, it was evolving, changing to the human incursion with defensive measures that made no sense. "It's a living system." Dr. Wong's instruments sputtered energy readings that should not have been possible. "The central tower is a biomechanical union. It's not simply we're piecing together a puzzle, we're doing surgery on the sleeping giant." The fifth explosion invoked the domino effect. The defenses had kicked in full, the archaic form reshaping into something that looked like nothing, less than a huge, crystalline being. Walls breathed with rhythmic pulses. Passages widened and narrowed as if they were capillaries. The song of the maze reached such a pitch that it broke many instruments in the research station. "We have to cancel," Sarah yelled over the din. "We're destroying something irreplaceable." "We're getting something to wake up," Marcus corrected, watching the lines of data scroll across his display. "Something that has been waiting for 3,000,000 years to have the guts to knock on its door." The sixth blast punched a hole in the final layer of the maze's defense, making a direct path to the center room. For a deafening moment, the structure's keening crescendoed, until the research station's hull was vibrating, and then it abruptly ceased. Silence was even worse than the noise. "Central chamber is open," Jake reported, his adrenaline apparent in his tense voice. "But the readings are ... unusual." "Unusual how?" Vasquez demanded. "There's something with a giant signature of energy in there. Something big, and it's been sleeping for a long time. It looks like our explosions have triggered it." The discussion that ensued was short but passionate. Sarah was for caution, urging that they might be awakening something that was best left sleeping. Marcus wanted an investigation right away. They'd slogged through too much to turn back. Ultimately, that choice was made for them. The maze began to collapse. Not the chaotic collapse of a building falling, but the implosion of a structure folding in on itself. The outer walls moved back, retracting towards the center chamber with a precision and movement that was mechanical. The tunnels those explosions had dug started to close in around them, trapping them. "It's not failing," Dr. Wong realized. "It's transforming. The whole maze is reconfiguring itself into something else." The inner chamber was visible once more. The walls on the outside pushed back, unveiling a giant glass dome, which glowed with light pulsing from within. The shape was beautiful and repellent. Obviously something made but also experiences as something organic by its curves and angles. At the center rose a single spire reaching to the sky like a finger post pointing at the stars. "We've got to go in there," Marcus said, putting on environmental gear, "before whatever the hell that is finishes." "This is crazy," Sarah complained, but she was grabbing for her own suit. "We don't even know what we're going into." "We never do," Marcus replied. "That's what makes us human." The 7-person team walked into the central chamber. Marcus, Sarah, Captain Vasquez, Lieutenant Morrison, Dr. Wang, and xenobiologist Dr. Rebecca Torres. They traveled through the outer ring of the changed maze along the path Marcus's bombs had made. The walls around them hummed with an intense force, and the air could be seen vibrating with barely contained power. Nobody could actually gaze upon them, but the symbols encircling the entrances of the central chamber formed perfect circles 20 meters in diameter. As they neared, the apertures started to iris close, but Marcus was prepared. He had brought shaped charges that would keep the passage open and, when they exploded, did so with all the precision and control that he had hoped for. "The maze is definitely trying to shut us out," Jake commented, seeing the opening trying to close back up over the blast damage. "Or keep something in," Sarah grumbled. She was picking up readings of energy that shouldn't exist within the frames of modern physics. The inside of the chamber was breathtaking. It arched 200 meters in height over Cantarpio's head, covered in swirling constellation designs that slowly faded and then took on new shapes. Toward the center of the space, it was an indescribable something machine and something like a living thing, and nothing but a concrete piece of pure mathematics. It was a tree, not a tree in the biological sense, but something that had the basic form. Its trunk was a living crystal column with veins of light running through it. The boughs were conduits of energy that stretched toward the zenith of the dome, sizzling with a force that tasted of copper and ozone. The roots went down into the hollow core of the planetoid and extracted energy sources, ages dead. "It's a computer," Dr. Wong gasped, her scanners struggling to take in what they beheld. "A building-sized biological computer. And the capacity of processing here is, it's unimaginable." Sarah continued, walking toward the building, scientific curiosity winning out over her fear. "It's a library, a repository. Consider the data flows passing through them. It's storing information." The tree, if it could be called that, reacted to their arrival. The patterns of light moving through its crystal matrix changed, sped up, and created images which danced in the air around them. Pictures, sounds, mathematical equations that spoke of physics beyond human ken. "It's trying to talk," Torres understood. The Cathara made this to talk, a means to keep their knowledge and share it with whomever was able to take hold of it. "But why hide it within an unsolvable maze?" Vasquez asked. To this the tree itself made reply. The air surrounding them quavered, and suddenly they weren't in a room, but in a place full of stars. The Cathara took form around them no longer. Solid forms, but crystallized streams of memory. They were not what the search party had expected. Most of the species encountered by galactic civilization were either organic or machine, but the Cathara were different. They were pure information. They were consciousness without being tied down to any particular form. They could exist within any complex enough system. "We as puzzle." The voice sounded from all and around, with chords of tone that their translators fought to decipher. "We are the solution. We are the experiment and the prize." The story that emerged was somewhere between beautiful and terrifying. The Cathara had done something that no other creatures had done. They had escaped the physical and their own time limits, depositing their consciousness inside frameworks that could live beyond the death of a sun. But that transcendence came with a grave responsibility. We learned too much, the voice went on. We learned things that should never have been learned. Technologies that could recreate reality itself. It was a power that could devastate more than worlds, one that could unravel existence itself. The maze had been their answer to an unsolvable question: what to do with dangerous knowledge and how to keep it safe from the wrong people. How do you incorporate the civilization's best and most cutting-edge discoveries, but shield the universe from how they can be abused? We created the maze as a screen, he said through the Cathara. And so we get a test of your intelligence and a test of your character. And only those who could figure out the unsolvable would be fit to know our secrets. Only the ones who could see through the maze to the higher reality would be prepared for what we had learned. But we in no way solved it, Marcus protested. We blew it up. Exactly. There was no mistaking the delight in this voice. Every other creature that came here attempted to solve our conundrum on our terms. They abided by the rules we'd decided, the restraints we'd imposed. They played our game, trying to show they were worthy. But humans don't play by the rules, Sarah concluded. Humans, they look at an impossible puzzle, change the rules, the Cathara said. Humans come, they see a locked door and they kick it in. We see this ancient mystery and we as humans decide that, well, some mysteries aren't supposed to be preserved. They're supposed to be solved. The tree radiated more brightly, and new images surrounded them. Not the physics equations you couldn't understand earlier, but something far more useful. Star charts, planetary surveys, geographic coordinates for technologies that could transform human civilization. 3 million years we have been waiting for someone to show they were ready. The Cathara went on, by refusing to respect our wishes, not by solving our puzzle, but by seeing that there are puzzles that are meant to be broken. Why? Torres asked. Why was that the test? Because the universe is not a riddle to be solved, said the Cathara. It's a problem, and it's fixable. Translating from Wittgenstein, the most difficult things for us to understand aren't things for which we can use logic or maths. They are the type where you have to drop everything you thought you knew and do something completely new. The knowledge transfer began immediately. Branches from the tree extended out towards each member of the team, light-seeking felt from their heads. Information poured into their minds, not mere data, but meaning. Tech that can fix dying worlds. Millennia-long energy sources for powering civilizations. The math that unlocked the doors to dimensions humans had never dreamed of. But with the understanding also came cautions. We found a way to control the laws of matter, the Cathara said. We discovered how to create and destroy matter as we wished. We enriched companies that engineered things as wondrous as the people whose brains we used to make them. Things that could rewrite the laws of physics themselves, and we nearly destroyed everything. What followed was the images of the cost of ultimate knowledge. Worlds appended by careless experiments, star systems folded up into pocket dimensions, huge volumes of space in which reality itself had been irreparably damaged. We pulled up short before we got out of hand, the Cathara replied. We decided to transcend rather than risk destroying everything we had come to love. But the knowledge remains. The technologies still exist. Now they're yours, to employ or to ignore. Why us? Marcus asked. Why humans specifically? Yet your challenge is oh so compendious. Tire first of you flying kind to make it, as far here to be reckless enough to win where we others failed, returned the Cathara. You have no reverence for old mysteries. You do not kneel to impossible taskmasters. You see a problem, and you fix it, whatever the cost. That doesn't sound like a compliment, Sarah commented. We consider it the greatest tribute we can pay, the Cathara corrected. The universe is slowly but surely dying. Stars will burn out. Galaxies will drift apart. Even the protons will eventually decay, Kolsky said, and nothing but empty space will remain. Only someone foolish enough to disregard the laws of reality has a chance of taking on the challenge and finding it. They spent 3 hours on the knowledge transfer. When it was finished, each of the team's members would have in his mind sufficient knowledge to advance human civilization by thousands of years. They figured out how to make faster-than-light drives that didn't depend on exotic matter. They knew power sources enough to fuel entire star systems. They too had mastered space and time. But they comprehended also why the Cathara had concealed that knowledge within an impossible maze. Some of these technologies, Dr. Wang said, her voice shaking as she experienced what she'd learnt, they could slice planets in two. They could make a weapon out of the sun. They could fix every problem that humanity has ever faced. Marcus cut in. Energy scarcity, resource wars, the laws of physics. We could become gods, or we could be the species that destroys the universe by accident, Sarah said quietly. Their options had been pretty much laid out for them. They would be able to carry this back to humanity, risking everything on humanity's ability to use ultimate power responsibly, or they might keep it hidden, permit the universe to keep dying slowly through the heat death. What would you do? Vasquez asked the crystalline tree. We cannot decide for you, replied the Cathara. Such a decision can only be made by those who will have to live with the consequences. But this much we can say, in 3 million years of wait, you are the first person to ask us this question. It wasn't like anything in human history, the argument that followed. 6 individuals standing inside an otherworldly chamber, capable of conceiving of reality itself, are arguing over the fate of not only their species, but the entire universe. Marcus made the case for knowledge. Humanity had always advanced through bold action, he declared. There was no great leap forward that had not depended upon one person taking risks that seemed impossible. It was a case in which the gains outweighed the perils. Sarah argued for caution. The Cathara had themselves known the perils of their learning. How could the human race, blighting itself with war and violence, be trusted with powers that could snuff out galaxies? Dr. Wang was torn. As a physicist, what they'd learned fascinated her. But as a human, she was terrified of how her species would use such power. Torres was concerned with the biological implications. Quantum-level technologies that can manipulate matter might remake life itself. He found the power to create and destroy all so vast. The demolitions expert, Jake, understood the military possibilities there and was both exhilarated and horrified. Weapons that could shatter planets, defensive systems that could shield entire star systems, the means to end all wars or begin the final war. The decision weighed heavily on Captain Vasquez as mission commander. She was to get any advances that could help for the human race, but they also came with a cost that may prove too high to bear. We have to have more information, she finally concluded. Before we make this decision, we better figure out what we're truly dealing with. The Cathara were patient. They had waited for 3 million years. They could wait a few hours as the humans calculated the full significance of their gift. The tree gave them visions of what might come. Timelines in which humanity, wisely guided by this knowledge, served as the guardians and the midwives of the star-born child claws of the nations. Timelines where the power infected them, making men into conquerors who twisted the universe to fit their whims. Timelines where mishap and design intersected to produce catastrophes that resonated through existences. In all timelines, the Cathar continued, there are victories and defeats. The ability to change the world is also the ability to change it erroneously. But of all universes in which the knowledge isn't passed on, the universe ends in darkness and cold. The choice became clear. It's not whether to take this knowledge, but how to wield it responsibly. We need safeguards, Sarah said. Restrictions. How to make sure this power can't be abused. We need oversight, Taurus added. International cooperation. Perhaps a new institution that would be set up to oversee these kinds of technologies. She needs to be smart about it, Marcus said. Start small. Test everything. Let's read the fine print before we do anything. The Cathara had made the right choice. The second part of this knowledge transfer was more selective. As we transferred the least harmful, most beneficial technologies, the humans would go back to their world, returning with tools to solve immediate problems, clean energy, advanced medicine, feasible spacefaring with others that would be too dangerous to find until humanity was up to them. Yet even the safe technologies would transform everything. Human culture would progress for hundreds of years in decades. The implications were staggering. One more thing, Cathara said as the team readied to depart. The maze will remain. There will be others follow, looking what you've found. You decide if you are going to reveal this location, or if it will remain an untold secret. Share it, Marcus said immediately. Like all species, they deserve a chance to shine. Even if they fail the test, Sarah asked. Especially if they bomb the test, Marcus said. The universe is large enough to accommodate different ways of tackling the same problems. Perhaps the next species will do a better job. The return to the research station felt like a dream. They were back in the maze as it originally was, but now they knew what it was for. It was not simply a puzzle or a test, it was a filter, intended to winnow out species prepared for the ultimate. Responsibility. The return of the expedition to Earth created a sensation. Their brought back technologies virtually overnight changed the course of human civilization. There was an energy crisis, and then clean fusion power came along and saved the day. Modern medicine eradicated most illnesses. It was faster than light. Travel that opened up the galaxy for human exploration, the most dangerous secret of all. However, Marcus and his team had saved. In the data they had collected, somewhere was knowledge that could transform reality itself. They had determined that this information would only be shared once humanity had proven itself ready, had learned to utilize the lesser technologies of mankind responsibly. That process would take generations. For 3 million years, the Cathara had been waiting for someone to work their puzzle. Humanity could wait a couple of 100 years to see if they earned the big prize. The Institute for Xenoarchaeological Ethics, EAXES, has been founded in 2358 by Dr. Sarah Hendricks, is committed to understanding technologies collected during the Great Push and its effects on human society. She ensured that each step of progress was thoroughly tested and slowly incorporated to avoid catastrophic errors like those that had propelled the Cathara to transcendence. How he did it, Marcus Chen was promoted to direct advanced engineering, leading the new tech development. He ensured that human audacity was informed by wisdom, that the race's native impulse to advance by kicking down doors was grounded in thought of what else might be behind the door. The labyrinth, on its faraway planetoid, waited to be discovered by the next sentient race. There, the Cathara had provided humankind's location data for similar installations installed elsewhere in the galaxy. They were tests, challenges, the last gift of a civilization that had discovered the cost of ultimate knowledge, and in those hidden bowels of humanity's research facilities, locked up behind veins and veins of security and safeguard, the most dangerous of secrets lay still. The technologies that would end the universe's long, slow night. Powers that may well put their fate into their own hands to reshape reality as they see fit. The knowledge that could make mankind heirs of the gods. The Cathara had chosen well. The people of Earth had demonstrated their worth not by discovering the answer to the unanswerable riddle, but by realizing that certain riddles were meant to be solved. They had had courage enough to pick out what they wanted, and discretion enough to let the rest alone for now. The universe was large, and yes, full of mysteries. Some of them were designed to be solved with thoughtful study and patient analysis. Most were expected to be conquered with hard work and creative destruction. The key was knowing when to apply which method to which problem, and if there was anything humans had proved themselves to be good at. Over the years, it was choosing the most audacious option available when confronted with a problem they had passed the maze through which they had been tried. The true measure would be how they spent their reward.